Hey there, it's CJ Willie and I'm cracking a pack. Today is pack number 6 in my science project of cracking a 1990 Topps Cello box. Check out my preview video for the explanation on how the science project will test the theory to see if I can build a complete set from a Cello box. I've added the link to my 1990 Topps box preview video in the description below. With all the packs that I crack, I will share my thoughts and memories about some of the players or cards. After I've cracked the pack, I'm going to choose the best card of the pack. That doesn't mean it has to be a rookie, superstar, or Hall of Famer. It can just be a goofy photo, something interesting about the player, or maybe some memory I had of the player from back in the day. Okay, we are now to pack number 6. So let's get a crack in number 6. If you've seen packs 4 and 5, you know that there were some definite surprises and a little bit of duplication in both of those packs. So hopefully today, there won't be as much duplication, because if we're trying to build a set out of this Cello box, duplication is not what we want. All right, first card out of the pack, Tom O'Malley. Pretty much a career backup infielder, utility player. Steve Lyons. Steve Lyons is a funny guy. My memory of Lyons was back in, I want to say, mid to late 80s. There's a video of him stilling second base or sliding into second base. He pops up to dust himself off and literally undoes his pants and down to his knees before he realizes, hey, wait a minute, I'm in the middle of a game. Next, Rafael Santana came up as a Mets shortstop and then moved to one of those rare crosstown trades, went from the Mets over to the Yankees. Cal Daniels came up with the Reds. A lot of promise. Didn't really fulfill the promise. In fact, he shared a rookie card and some time with Cal Daniels, or not Cal Daniels, Paul O'Neill. You can tell that this is one of Topps' last kind of airbrush updates to a card. Obviously, the LA and the hat is airbrushed, and they've airbrushed the Reds uniform to make it a little grayish like the Dodger uniform. Keith Hernandez. Keith Hernandez was with my Cardinals as a first baseman, and then was sent to the Mets in a mid-season trade. Whitey Herzog had finally had enough of the Keith Hernandez shenanigans. If you want to read about that, check out the Wikipedia page and some of Keith Hernandez's issues with drugs. I'd like to think that if he didn't have those issues with drugs, he would have had a longer career and probably would have got close to the 3,000 hit club. Outstanding defensive first baseman. I think he's one of the few Major League Baseball players that had over 10 gold gloves that is not in the Hall of Fame. Mark Davidson, pretty much backup outfielder with the Astros and other teams. Mark Gardner, future star, so one of the future star cards. Mark Gardner did come out in his first year and had a pretty good year with the Expos. After that, pretty much became a bulk inning spot starter type pitcher. Dennis Cook, lefty with the Phillies, spent a number of years as a left-handed relief specialist. Danny Heap, pretty much a pinch-hitting outfielder, played a little bit of first base, spent some time with the Mets. Carlos Quintana. Carlos Quintana, let's look at his back. He came up with a lot of promise. If you'll notice, his batting average and his statistics in the minor leagues hit for a high average and some power, never translated to the big leagues. Pretty much what you would call not a AAA, but a 4A career baseball player. Turn back the clock. I always liked these. I thought these were really cool cards. Here's a turn back the clock 25 years ago with Sandy Koufax. Next is Dennis Eckersley, relief pitcher with the Athletics. Really great Hall of Famer. Spent first half of his career as a starting pitcher, and then the second half of his career as a relief pitcher, a closer with Athletics, and then also a closer with my Cardinals. Helped the Cardinals win the National League Central Division in 1996. He and John Smoltz are very similar in that they had a lot of success as a starter and a lot of success as a closer. Ken Patterson, pretty much a relief pitcher. Robin Ventura. Great player, spent some time as the Mets manager, not the Mets manager, White Sox manager. The one thing that I always remember about Robin Ventura was Nolan Ryan putting him in a headlock and beating the tar out of him. Randy Myers, closer, early on with the Reds and then spent time with the Mets. There's our Topps Company store. Get yourself a t-shirt. I don't know of anyone that ever got these t-shirts. Let's flip it around here. Kevin Brown, pitcher with the Rangers. He was an all-star for a number of years. Really difficult pitcher to face. He is a borderline Hall of Famer in my opinion. I think he'll eventually get in. The problem was he was not a very nice guy, and he was a competitor. And so if it comes down to the Veterans Committee, it's going to be, I think, tough for his peers to vote him in because he wasn't a very likable player. Charlie O'Brien, an outfielder and catcher with the Brewers. Jay Tibbs, starting pitcher with the Orioles. Had a little bit of success early on, but never really panned out. Doc Gooden. Instead of Dwight Gooden, for a few years, Topps would name it Doc Gooden. He's like Darryl Strawberry. What would have been if he hadn't got mixed up in drugs? He was so phenomenal out of the gate. If he could have just lasted and had another 10 seasons like his first 5, surefall Hall of Famer. Problem was those drugs in the mid-'80s to late '90s derailed a lot of careers. Vance Law. I always liked Vance Law. He was pretty much a utility player with both the Expos and Cubs. Bryn Smith, another player that I liked. He spent some time with the Cardinals. I even liked him before he was with the Cardinals. He spent a number of years with the Expos. He was what you would call a very steady Eddie pitcher. Each year you could count on 10 to 13 wins, around a high 3 to 4 earned run average. In fact, I think he ended his career, and we'll take a look at his back before he went to the Cardinals. Even when you look at it there, 81 and 71 career win-loss record, and as you see, pretty steady. You could count on him from 10 to 12 wins every year. One year in '85, he had a great year, 18 and 5. But, really a middle-of-the-rotation anchor guy. Craig McMurtry, pretty much just a bulk innings guy. Todd Benzinger. Todd Benzinger is another player that came up with a lot of promise. Looked like he was going to be a future superstar. Started out pretty good, but then later on in his career really was kind of a backup first baseman outfielder. Spike Owen, great defensive shortstop, was not as great with the bat. Tony Pena. I think I've already covered this in one of the earlier packs. I was devastated when my Cardinals traded Andy Van Slyke and Mike LeVailleur for Tony Pena. Maybe it was because they're in the NL East together. I did not like Tony Pena. I just didn't think he was going to pan out for the Cardinals. And hindsight, it's 2020. I mean, he ended up being an okay catcher for the Cardinals for a couple of years. Andy Van Slyke went on to be a superstar with the Pirates. Rick Rhoden, pretty much a steady starting pitcher for a number of years with the Astros and the Pirates. Teddy Higuera, man, this guy came out and he was a great all-star. Had 3 or 4 years just as a tremendous starting pitcher. He was a screwballer. He had one of the best screwballs in the game, like Fernando Valenzuela. It eventually derailed his career. He went on the disabled list after, I think he may have been close to being on the disabled list if we take a look at his card. If you can see his first 4 years, tremendous. And then starting in '89, his innings were cut, started to get injured, and after that, just dropped out of baseball. Doug Radar was a player for many years. He spent just a little bit of time as a manager with the Angels. Don Zimmer, this is back before he was a bench coach with the Yankees. He's a manager with the Cubs. Wasn't a very successful manager with the Cubs. Pedro Guerrero, another trade I did not like. The Cardinals traded John Tudor to the Dodgers for Pedro Guerrero. John Tudor, oh man, he was so great with the Cardinals in '85, '86, '87. I didn't like it. Well, here's the funny thing about it. Guerrero actually panned out to be a pretty good player with the Cardinals, and after about a year and a half with the Dodgers, Tudor returned to the Cardinals, and in '89 and '90 helped him get close to the playoffs, but not quite there. So I wasn't as devastated, although right when the trade was made, I wasn't happy. But when Tudor returned and he was playing on the same team as Guerrero, yeah, I liked it. And the final card in the pack is Dave Magadan. Dave Magadan, he came out as a superstar. I believe it was his '88 Topps card, labeled him as a future star. Magadan was an okay regular for a little bit of time, but then spent the bulk of his career once again being like a pinch hitter kind of backup player. Okay, what I think is the best card and my favorite card out of the pack, I have to go with, where is he? I think he was early on in the pack. Steve Lyons. If you haven't read up on the guy, he spent some time, I think, as an announcer. I don't know if he's currently an announcer. The guy was a goofball. He was funny. And I'll always remember watching, you know, the bloopers, MLB bloopers, and you would see Steve Lyons sliding into second base, head first, hops up, starts, you know, dusting off his pants, completely undoes him, drops him to his knees, and then seconds later he realizes, wait a minute, I'm in the middle of the game, I'm in front of, like, you know, 30,000 fans. Talk about embarrassment. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, please subscribe and share. Until next time when I crack pack number 7 from my 1990 Top Cello box. Remember, I'm doing this for science.